have always sort of had a reverence for the Bible, and then a lower reverence, but still a lot of respect for things like Greek medicine, Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, like all these forms of medicine that have been around for a long time. Most of those have been proven through millions of individual case studies. Today, we use a lot of these double-blind placebo studies. There are there are benefits of that, but there's also a lot of funding from pharmaceutical companies and things that can skew that. There's a lot of cherry picking data. So there's also a lot of untruth to some of the studies today. And so what I try and do is look at, okay, what is sort of the ancient philosophical medicine say, with the Bible being a big part of that? And then what does modern science say? And where's the overlap there and what's true? And I really look at a lot of patterns to see, where's the overlap in that truth, and then trying to apply that truth to patients and helping them get well. An example of this would be, when we look at the Bible talks about somebody being affected to the third and fourth generation. So the Bible talks about that type of impact. In scientific literature today, or medicine, that's just epigenetics. It's turning on those gene switches. And so it's that very same thing. And then I learned on, okay, well, how do we start to deal with that? Well, Chinese medicine said, you need to live in tune with sort of when the sun goes up and sun goes down. That's very in line with Genesis and us living in tune with the world God created, which is very in line with the scientific literature of cortisol and melatonin, and don't look at the blue light, and get, outdoors first thing in the morning, right when you wake up. And that leads to less stress, better sleep, better tissue regeneration. And so what I like to do is look at all of these different sort of both the scientific and more of the ancient philosophical forms of medicine, see where they overlap, and then create programs and protocols from those cross sections.
It's amazing when you look back into the Bible. There was this book that kind of changed my view on it, None of These Diseases, which when you look at what was done in the Bible, it really is to keep us healthy.
Yes, exactly. I think that, if somebody really digs deep down and understands what God's word is saying, it is the most healing book ever written. And one of the things that I found in practice and through about 20 years of being a practitioner is stress, unhealthy emotions, things that are going on spiritually in your life. Those have a bigger impact on your health than diet does. Now, diet's important, and I think it's the second most important thing. I think exercise and movement can be important, but I truly believe that sort of our mental and emotional state is the biggest thing that impacts our health. I'll give you an example of this. If I take care of a patient with inflammatory bowel disease or IBS, if they would eat a conventional pizza or ice cream like Dairy Queen and then come to me the next day, typically my stomach hurts, my intestines hurt, I've got inflammation, I've had loose stool, some sort of gut issue. But will it impact it in a very similar way as if, hey, I'm going through a divorce, or I've got relational stress, or I'm trying to meet a work deadline, or some stressful event in their life where they get in a state of fear, worry, anxiety. Those impact the gut in a very, very similar way. So I think most health issues are related to not trusting in God enough. And that's going to lead to, worry and fear, living out of tune with the way God created us to live in terms of being really in touch with nature. And then, of course, the Bible hits on diet plenty. There are farming principles of letting the land rest every 7 years and how to actually build up topsoil in the land. There are biblical principles in there, especially in the Torah, those first 5 books of the Bible. You also see them. Anyways, there's biblical principles throughout the Bible on farming and food and those sort of things as well. So I do think the Bible is sort of the ultimate health book out there today.
So much goodness to go into. I always say soul work before body work. I can work with health coaching client and speak with women for a year trying to fix sleep, diet, movement, relationships, all of that. And it will have the breakthrough when we come to the spirituality point. So usually that's where I'll go first, is to start there with what's going on with the soul work, because that body work has to come after that. Even for me, I find when I'm looking at metrics like my HRV, I can be on point with food and movement and sleep. But if I'm stressed, it's off.
Well, I was talking with one of the world's leading labs. It's called True Diagnostics, and they do a lot of biological aging testing and organ age testing. The man there, who is a biochemist, I asked him, I said, hey, when you've done this long, and looked at thousands of data points on staying young and more youthful and healthy. And I said, hey, when you look at What are the single biggest drivers of longevity or somebody having a younger biological age than their chronological age? So there's a way to test for if somebody's 40, they could be that chronologically, but biologically they could actually be 30 or 50. And we've all seen people that are like in their 60s but look like they're in their 40s. Think like
Right.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr. You look at him. I mean, he's in his 70s and he's so fit. He could be in his 50s. You could think that, right? If you met him. But there's other people you've seen that are in their 50s and you think they're 70. How's that possible? Well, if you've treated your body well, and your body can actually be biologically younger than your chronological age compared to the average person. Well, I asked him, hey, what's the single biggest factor that drives that? And I thought he was going to say, hey, NAD plus or this diet. He said, no, it's stress. He said, literally, when I have people do stress reducing techniques as part of a protocol or program across the board, we've seen that to be the biggest needle mover in someone staying younger.